Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Gurna, it's a very emotional week this week, especially for non-Sikhs and Sikhs.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a very emotional week for a lot of people. From, you remember on Tuesday, all over the UK, we were celebrating at the Cenotaph and other places, the Armistice Day. And जिस तरह कि अभी सिक्खा वास्ते भी बहुत बड़ा हफ्ता है और नॉन सिक्खा वास्ते भी है. On Tuesday, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, we saw throughout the UK and Europe a 2-minute silence, honouring all those killed in conflicts since the start of World War I, known as the Armistice Day. In London, we had a very emotional remembrance ceremony at Westminster Abbey, the Cenotaph on Trafalgar Square. But there was this amazing spectacle. I think some of you will have maybe visited that. It's where we've got nearly 900,000 ceramic poppies at the Tower of London, representing the kind of blood-swept lands and seas of Red and the death of a British and Commonwealth soldier during the First World War. It's a very moving exhibition there, and certainly if you haven't seen that exhibition at Tower of London, I think they're dismantling it now, but certainly get down there. Of course, you know, this day is not just about the UK, it's about the whole of Europe, in fact, the whole of the world. In France, the President Francois Hollande laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier under the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, and in Belgium, in the town of Ypres at the Menham Gate, where there's a very special memorial to the many thousands of Sikhs that fell and other soldiers in that part of Europe, in Belgium. There was a special, very special last post ceremony held. So, you know, although this is the amazing thing, Manjit, although only 2% of the Indian population, in fact, the pre-partition Indian population, possibly less than 2%, maybe 1%, were Sikhs, they made up 20% of the British Indian Army, which is phenomenal. Which I think at its peak, the British Indian Army was something like 4 million. So it's up to 1 million Sikhs served in the army, which possibly was maybe 30% of the entire Sikh population. So there were very few Sikh households that didn't have somebody in the military. And at the beginning of the First World War, Sikhs in the British Army totaled 100,000. And as I said, many of them laid down their lives and fought in battalions in Egypt, Palestine, Mesopotamia, Gallipoli in France. And we will be hearing about some of these things, and if you look at some of the images that we're displaying. 6 battalions of the Sikh regiment were raised in World War II. And they served in El Alamein and in Burma, Italy and Iraq. And Italy ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਨਵੇਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਇਟਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਇਟਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਬਾਬਿਆਂ ਪੜਦਾਦਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਸ਼ਹਾਦਤਾਂ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਇਟਲੀ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ. Same thing in France. So you go and discover your history, find out, and I know that there are now memorials in Italy and in France and other places. And over the 2 world wars, an amazing 83,000 turban-wearing Sikhs gave their lives, and over 110,000 were wounded. Again, a very high casualty rate, yeah? So today's show really is focusing, as you were saying, it's a very emotional day. It's going to focus on all of these events and really the role of Sikhs in war. And, you know, it's a very special program. We've got some very special guests, so I think we should. Shall we introduce the guests? Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to start on my right-hand side. मैं सज्जियातो शुरू करना by Gurpal Singh Ji. By Gurpal Singh Ji is from the National Sikh Museum in Derby. And next to Gurpal Singh, we have Timothy Lane, who is a military historian and also is involved with Gurpal in Derby at the National Sikh Museum. If I go on to my left, I've got on first by Jagmohan Singh, a very dear friend of mine. He's got many contributions, but Jagmohan Singh served in the British Army. He served in Iraq, and I think he also served in Afghanistan. Next to Jagmohan, we have Hardeep Singh Bhatt, who is from the UK Punjab Heritage Association. And you know something about the exhibition that's been running at the Brunei Gallery in London, and we went to see that. We actually did a documentary. It's absolutely phenomenal, and we'll be hearing about the kind of work that they've been doing and some of the impact, because we really want to know what impact that has. And next to Hardeep, we have another Gurpal Singh who is an educationalist and also amateur Sikh historian. So we've got a really fantastic team here today. Excellent. So I think everybody, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Just imagine, this is the first round. I think, you know, as you were saying, it's a very emotional week.
Of course it is.
And we all have personal connections. I mean, my grandfather served in the army as well. He was a linguist in the First World War. And he used to write beautiful letters to me and things like that. So we all have memories, but can we maybe start, Jagmohan Singh ji, you know, what kind of emotions, what kind of thoughts do you have when we think about this phenomenal contribution of Sikhs in the wars and subsequently as well, because you've served in wars as well?
Dr. Sir, I think you answered answer your question, yeah. Because I serve in the army, so I go those connections, yeah. When I actually started the army training, so I was the only Sikh in my whole battalion. So they used to question me like why I'm different, why I'm not shaving. Go army rules. Probably Tim will explain you later. They're very strict about shaving and stuff. So they used to ask me why I'm allowed to keep my kara or why I'm allowed to keep my kirpan on when they know when my fellow colleagues wasn't allowed to keep their religious symbols. So I think I'd start doing some research.
It's tragic because the British Army itself have forgotten their own history.
Yeah. So
at the time when the Sikhs were not questioned about these things, quite the contrary.
I mean, like, I think so. I had to do some research, and World War I was the start. So I went online, I did some research, printed some pictures. So I have to do some presentations as well, because when I started my training, and even my instructors were a bit concerned. They were like, just make sure we don't want to offend you. And I was like, look, Sikhs don't get offended very quickly. Yeah? So you can ask me anything. You can train me like your normal guys. So I'm very emotionally attached with this. And I remember an incident actually, why actually every year I actually take time off to go to these Remembrance Days, you know. I met a lady actually while I was traveling back to Purbright, my training. I met a lady, like a white lady, and she asked me a few questions about what would I do, like am I a student or so. But actually I was hiding my identity because I was serving in the forces. But I was advised by my by trainers, look, don't disclose on the trains because there was some IRA threat at that time. So actually she told me a story that in World War II actually, one of the Sikhs actually, I think they had like hand-to-hand fight with Germans in Belgium, and actually one of the Sikhs actually sacrificed his life to save his dad's life. So when I told her that actually I'm serving in the British Army, actually she forced me to have a cup of coffee with her. She actually made me to on board my train. I said, look, at Oxford Station, So I think after that day, actually every year.
Well, it is phenomenal. If you go to Ypres and you find the local villagers, the elder people, they embrace you. They see Sikhs as liberators and freedom. Now, Jagmohan, you've got a couple of badges there. Just tell us a bit about the badges as well.
Actually, as you mentioned before, I served in Afghanistan. So one badge is for serving in Afghanistan, and one is for working with the NATO forces. So because I spent a year, I did 2 operational tours, Operation Opharik 6 and Opharik 8. I will talk about my experience later on.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Tell us about because you was going to get a third one as well, a third badge.
I mean, like, to qualify for your medals, you have to serve a certain time. So I served in Middle East somewhere else. I didn't qualify for that area. So because they moved, because one of my friend actually, he has some sort of, he has to come back due to some, I would say, welfare reasons from Afghanistan. Because I think his wife was pregnant, so the army is very good with, like, when it comes to welfare. It doesn't matter where you're serving. They always try to accommodate your personal life as well. So actually I missed that one, but so
that's great. Yeah. That's great. Okay, Hardeep, later on we are going to talk about the exhibition and some of the work you've been doing there. But just before that, I mean, you are involved with the UK Punjab Heritage Association, and you're also a member of the Empire Faith and War Project Board. You know, what is it that inspires you to get interested, engaged in this kind of stuff? You know, what is it about your own Sikh identity or your own remembrance of your own history? What's the kind of thing that inspires you?
I think the answer is pretty simple. It is my kids. I want to make sure my children, when the Remembrance Sundays and the 2-minute silences are held and they are observed, they don't feel excluded. I want to make sure they understand that what their heritage is, what their forefathers have done, what their ancestors have done for this country and for the world. So that I think, I mean, if you want to boil it down to one point, and I think that's pretty much it. If I can ensure my kids feel part of this country, they feel that they belong, they're ancestors have sacrificed their lives for this country. They can
What about
hold
your
their head.
ancestors? I mean, have you studied your own kind of lineage and discovered anything interesting?
Well, as we've tried, and there is unfortunately no direct connection with World War One in my family. However, there is a connection of from my mum's side. My mum's grandfather was on the Kamakata Maru ship, which then was turned back from Canada, and part of that was, it kind of inspired the Gada movement, and it was infiltrated. So that's the other, and that's
we'll
the other
pick that
part.
question up in a second half.
And so I have family
That's great.
links on the other side. But I mean, as part of the Empire Faith War project, what we are trying to do is we are trying to uncover the whole story, not just the participation on the army, on the war side, but also on the other side, on the freedom fighter struggle and the families that were left behind, and the impact the war had on women, children, the families, the society in general. And that, hopefully we're uncovering some amazing stuff, and hopefully with your help and with the help of the other organizations, we can reach out to a number of people to uncover further.
One of the amazing things that you've uncovered, which I think, some of those images they're in books and things, but is those sound archive from Germany,
yes.
from the concentration prison.
Amazing.
Tell us a bit about that, because that's phenomenal stuff.
So the Germans had this campaign, and they had this camp outside Berlin called Harpoon Camp, and that's where the POWs were kept. The Germans had sort of this drive, this propaganda that they were working on to actually primarily to target the Muslim soldiers, so that they could initiate jihad. So they had this whole thing with the Ottoman Empire, which was joining Germany, and they were kind of hoping that all of the Muslim population will join them, and they will desert the British Indian Army and join them on their side. And it was a failure of an experiment. It didn't quite work. And in those camps, they also had Sikhs and other Hindus. But what they did do was something really amazing. It was they did this ethnography and other studies on the POWs, and they tried to understand what makes Sikhs what makes us special, what makes them warrior, what makes them difficult to beat. What is this myth about the Sikh warrior soldier? And they studied all sorts of things.
What does the archive reveal?
Actually, the study is inconclusive. I mean, the data is spread all over. There's no kind of particular kind of sample data. It's from all over the place. It doesn't really tell you anything. There are a couple of things it does reveal, which are personally, they're quite disturbing. One of the things that they did was they kind of asked the POWs, how many brothers, sisters do you have? How many sons, daughters do you have? And the numbers don't really tell you a good story. And you can see what's happening. The ratio of male to female is is quite high. So which is quite disturbing. But the sound archives that they've captured, and we found them in this museum in Berlin, and we got them over.
So the Humboldt University, isn't it? The Humboldt University.
Absolutely, and it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, you can hear folk songs, and you can hear these guys talking about their experiences, and they're talking about stuff that's folklore, and some of them are singing shabds, and some of them are telling stories. And for us to be able to listen to a sound archive 100 years ago.
And the dialect as well. There's lots of, it's like an archive of all those village dialects in Punjabi
absolutely.
that we're losing as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just one other thing, and then I'm going to move on to Gopal. The project that you've been involved in, I think it got national lottery funding up to about £500,000, so lots of money points there. What kind of impact have you had?
So we've had as you know, it's Heritage Lottery funded, and it's the project's a 3-year project, and what we are trying to do is we are trying to uncover the stories of our heritage, our ancestors, and It's a story that's been forgotten by India. It's a story that's been forgotten by Britain because it's a colonial past. Doesn't sit comfortably with either. When Britain, gave independence to India, or India gained independence from Britain, Britain said, "Well, it's your story. It's your commemoration. You commemorate it." And India sort of took it over and said, "Well, it kind of sits uncomfortably. These guys fought for the empire. It doesn't quite work." But we have a duty to our forefathers to. We're not here to judge. We're here to just uncover the truth, the whole truth.
And basically digging all the history out.
We are trying to create this history. We are trying to create this archive because, as you know, most of the soldiers were illiterate and they couldn't read and write. So a lot of
were they a conscript army or were they a voluntary army?
Well, it's a complex question. It's a complex answer to a very simple question. In theory, the whole of the British Indian Army was a volunteer army. So
but these were poor people in the villages, so really...
Exactly. So that's where the difficulty comes in, because a lot of them fought for kind of the bravery aspect, the
adventure.
Adventure.
Because
guns,
a lot of the publicists
absolutely.
and posters were presenting it as this
Exactly.
amazing adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of them, big guns, boys and guns, right? And that's one. So that's adventure.
And we've got some examples here.
We've got some
we're talking
examples
about.
there, absolutely. And the others were, there were whole sort of kind of parts to play here. The civil administration, the government, the Maharajas, the whole administration was sort of working with the British to kind of glorify the war, to kind of enlist them. The Tahsildars, the Lambardars from the village, and they were all sort of paid a booty to kind of make sure you supply me 100 men a month or 10 men a month from every village or whatever. And and some of them, don't forget, some of them fought for enlisted for status. It changed lives. And this was not the start of enlisting in the Sikh regiments or and to fight under the British Army. The Sikh regiments were formed right in 1846. The first one was raised, right, at the outbreak of the first Anglo-Sikh War. So they had a amazing history and heritage of this.
Yeah.
We'll come back to some of the other stuff. I just want to Gurpal. I want to kind of, because you mentioned the Anglo-Sikh Wars, and this is a good segue to Gurpal, really, because he's a historian of that whole period. Yeah? Now, let me come to that point, because we do always romanticize the past, and maybe there's a good reason to do that as well. And in the exhibition that we've seen at SOAS, there are some posters around the race theories and the Germans were into that big time, but even the British were. To what extent is this idea of the martial race itself propaganda tool, a recruitment tool? And to what extent is it a reality? Because we fought 2 bloody wars with the British, so they knew that the Sikhs can fight. So where do you kind of make sense of that?
Well, I think it very much went to the advantage of the British to come up with that sort of theory. Yes, there is some evidence, historical evidence, to say that from the time of the Gurus, Guru Hargobind, Guru Gobind Singh Ji,
we were certainly a fighting force.
Were certainly a fighting force and played a major role in getting rid of the Mughal Empire. There's no doubt about that. I think the British, during the eve of the Anglo-Sikh War, were in great awe and admiration of the Sikhs, and you can see that expressed in their official dispatches, their letters, the history of the period, that they were in awe of their fighting ability, and I think they wanted to harness that, and they did do that in a small way. I think with great caution they took Sikh recruits after the Anglo-Sikh Wars, and they were still suspicious. There were lots of things happening in the background in terms of rebellion. There was Bhai Maharaj
But that's
Singh
strange,
and so
though,
on.
because on the other hand, I've seen some archival footage where Sikh soldiers have been guarding Churchill. They trusted them so much that I think there was a meeting, I don't know, somewhere in Germany, where all the top leaders of all were guarded by Sikh soldiers. Maybe they're the only ones that they did trust.
That was much later on, Gurnam. It wasn't until the actual
second.
Indian mutiny that they realised they could rely on the Sikhs and the Punjabi
loyalty.
Muslimans as well. And their loyalty, and it was after that moment that there was wholesale recruitment en masse into the army, and of course, King George's 14th own Firozpur Sikhs, who won so many, gallantry.
Is there
awards
any
and so
evidence
on
of any
and battalions.
uprisings, any mutinies, revolts in the time of the British India Army,
There
we know
was
about
one.
There was one.
There was one, and it was during the time, it was in Bombay, and it was during the time of the sort of Ghadar rebellion and the Babrak Ali
Okay, that we're
movement
going
and
back
so on.
to Al's territory now. There,
And of course, there was also some influence on the Sikh
but not in the
soldiers
battlefield.
from
There's-
Mohan Singh and the Indian National Army.
No,
as
no, no.
well.
We know that's a different. That's a different war. That's
Yes.
a different theatre. In Europe, is there any evidence of any Sikh soldiers actually saying, "We're not going to fight for you"?
Not to my
So
knowledge.
they were totally
and I
loyal.
don't think.
About was there
There's
total
any-
loyalty there? Did you?
I think, I think that's a difficult one to answer because I think there might have been a bit of desertion, but the desertion was, and the desertion rate.
And the penalty for desertion was death.
Yeah,
You get
absolutely.
shot dead.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
And I don't think the numbers were any lower or higher
Okay.
than the norm. But I don't think there is any mass kind of mutiny, rebellion. No.
Just quickly comment that because I mean.
Yeah, actually, I just want to add that,
Then we'll come over.
Battle of New Chapel, about 138,000 Sikhs went, and 80% of them lost their lives, So I can't see it happening there. But there's some letters, if you go online, the data is available. Just for Punjabi ਚ ਵੀ ਕਹਿ ਦਵਾਂ ਕਈ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਲੋਕ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅੰਪਾਇਰ ਨਾਲ ਗਦਾਰੀ ਕਰੂਗਾ ਜਾਂ ਕਿੰਗ ਨਾਲ ਜਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਥੀਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਕਿਤੇ ਸਿੱਧਾ ਨਰਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਊਗਾ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਸਟੋਰੀਜ਼ ਨੇ ਲਾਈਕ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਕਿ ਲੋਕ I will rather die on the battlefield, as Guru Sahib Bani said. Ab jab aab ki yaud nidan bani.
Because they took oath on Guru Granth Sahib.
Yeah.
Wasn't that another very clever strategy? I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Was that a clever strategy by the British to really tie them down?
It
Tie their
potentially
loyalty
was.
down?
It worked, right?
It worked.
It worked. I mean, I don't know whether it was conscious decision or not, and I'm not an expert in that, but I can say it worked, right?
Okay.
So
let's hear what Gopal thinks it is.
Well, I think it's part of the Sikh tradition to take oath on
So
Guru Granth
wherever
Sahib, do
battlefield,
ardas
yeah.
before the
Yeah.
war. I think that's part of the tradition.
Okay.
I just want to give a reference from a letter written by Mohan Singh. He said, thanks to Sardar Bhutta Singh of Rawalpindi for sending a copy of Sri
So
Guru
this
Granth
is by
Sahib Ji.
Montague. He's a soldier.
He was a soldier in World War One, so he was actually
In Europe.
he wrote a letter to his younger brother saying, "Look, thanks to Sardar Bhutta Singh of Rawalpindi for sending the Guru Granth Sahib, so that now we can pray on the battlefield." So
Firstly, you've got the Ek Inchi Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Ek Inchi, they produced a few, didn't they?
They did. And I think that happened as the war progressed. They printed this miniature Guru Granth Sahibs with the magnifying glass, which the soldiers were able to tuck into their turbans. And they were, I mean, the amazing thing about this war, which we keep discovering new and new facts, is the soldiers would lose their Khande Kirbana, which is, their symbols of their faith and their kare and stuff. And they would be writing home letters like that, can you please send me my Khanda, and I've lost it and stuff. What the British Army then did was they manufactured these items of Sikh faith in Sheffield and shipped them through supply
Wow,
lines,
that's amazing.
Do you have any,
which they could kind of get.
Names of companies
Yeah.
are they still existing? Have we got any archive?
I'm sure there's a lot of data on it, but
Now,
we can find out,
Sheffield,
but
if
I don't
anybody,
know that to hand.
any Sikhs watching from Sheffield or South Yorkshire, here's a project for you. Go and find out, go to the local museums and find out about Sheffield forgers who are making weapons, Sikh traditional kind of
And wouldn't
artifacts.
that be an amazing
Amazing.
story
Yeah, of course it would
to
be.
kind of become part of our citizen historian database, which is, again, as I said about the project, we are uncovering.
Just
and
quickly tell us about the
creating-
citizen historian, then we're going to go over
So,
to...
as part of the 3-year project that we have embarked on, and the exhibition was the launch of that. What we are doing is we are uncovering stories in our families, in our community, to document that history which has been lost and forgotten, and we're creating a database with as much information as we can put in it, and then as part of our Every Soldier Remembered project, the wider Imperial War Museum Every Soldier Remembered project, we will be handing over that database to become part of that.
And how many
that,
people have so far signed up to
so
that?
we've had about about 500 odd people sign up, and this is our chance now, because up until now we've been saying, well, you know, everybody's forgotten our history, nobody's written it.
This is
Now
the
is your
opportunity.
chance.
Punjabi ਚ ਵੀ
It's
ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ
World
ਜਿਹਾ-
War One.
ਹਰਦੀਪ,
ਤੁਸੀਂ-
ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਵੀ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਦੱਸ ਦਿਓ, straight to the camera.
Yeah.
So ਪਹਿਲੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਜਾਂ ਦੂਜੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਵੀ ਫਰਸਟ ਵਰਲਡ ਵਾਰ ਜਾਂ ਸੈਕੰਡ ਵਰਲਡ ਵਾਰ ਚ ਵੀ but ਫਰਸਟ ਵਰਲਡ ਵਾਰ ਮੇਨਲੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਫੋਕਸ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਫੈਮਲੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਈ ਸਟੋਰੀਜ਼ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ, ਕੋਈ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈਗੀ, ਕੋਈ ਮੈਟਲਸ, ਕੋਈ ਲੈਟਰਸ, ਕੋਈ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਹੈਗਾ, ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ ਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਪੁੱਛ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ, ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਆਪ ਨਹੀਂ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਟ ਚਲਾਉਣਾ ਆਉਂਦਾ, ਤੇ empirefaithwar.com ਪ੍ਰੋਜੈਕਟ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ। ਇਹ 3 ਸਾਲ ਚੱਲਣਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਜੈਕਟ। ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਦੀ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਡਾਕੂਮੈਂਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ, ਤੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਮੇਰੇ ਵਰਗੇ ਕੋ ਸਾਡੀ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ 'ਚ ਕੋਈ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ, ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਪਿੰਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕੋਈ ਗਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ, ਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਿਆ ਪਿੰਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ, ਸਾਡੇ ਏਰੀਏ 'ਚ ਕੋਈ ਗਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਮੈਂ ਸਟੋਰੀਜ਼ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਡੇਟਾਬੇਸ ਪਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੀ ਕੋਈ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਬਣੇ, ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਫਿਰ ਸਾਰੇ ਟਾਈਮ ਲਈ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਮਿਊਜ਼ੀਅਮ ਨੂੰ, ਇੰਪੀਰੀਅਲ ਵਾਰ ਮਿਊਜ਼ੀਅਮ ਨੂੰ ਹੈਂਡ ਓਵਰ ਕਰ ਦੇਣੀ ਹੈ ਪਰਮਾਨੈਂਟ ਡਿਸਪਲੇ ਲਈ। ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਤੋਂ 100 ਸਾਲ 200 ਸਾਲ ਬਾਅਦ ਯੂ ਨੋ ਕੋਈ ਲੁੱਕ ਅਪ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੂਗਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਲੁੱਕ ਅਪ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ। ਤੇ ਯੂ ਨੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗ ਸੀਗੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ on their basis, on their goodwill are we today saying that what good jobs deeds that they did. Now it's our duty to kind of document
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਮੈਂ
that.
ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਜੇ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਤਾਂ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਫੁੱਲਤ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਸਿੱਖੀ ਨੂੰ ਬਚਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਤਾਂ ਆਹ ਦੇਖੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਵਧੀਆ ਮੌਕਾ, what a great opportunity we have to make a real difference. So ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ ਤੇ ਜਾਓ and you enter your details. ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫੌਜ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੀਗਾ, ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਸ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ ਤੇ ਪਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ। ਤਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਪਿਕਚਰ ਬਣਾ ਦੇਣੀ ਆ, ਤਾਂ ਸਾਰੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਹੈਗਾ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗਵਾਚਾ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਘਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਰੱਖਿਆ, ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਆਪਾਂ ਪਬਲਿਸ਼ ਕਰੋਗੇ। So that's fantastic.
So you can just add
last
to
point,
that.
then we're going to go on.
Just add to that. Not just people who fought in the war, but we also want to uncover stories that were people left behind, families left behind, women. How were they, if there's anything,
amazing
and also
to
please
put in the
ask.
history, yeah.
Please, अपने बुजुर्गों को पूछो, गल करो, उन्हें पूछो.
All the history will go with them.
Absolutely. Otherwise, history is.
That's fantastic. So there you are. Amazing stuff. Thanks very much, Hardeep. And we'll come back and we'll talk more about some of this work. I'm now going to turn over to my colleagues on the right, both doing amazing, fantastic work from the National Sikh Museum in Derby. I think the Sikh Museum has only been going for a few years, but from very humble beginnings, it has really been a phenomenal impact and has become the primary focus for Sikh artifact history in the UK. And as you can see, some of the artifacts connected with the First World War, our colleagues have brought, and they will be talking a bit about this. So I'm just going to come to you first, Gurbal Singh ji. Again, thanks very much for coming and sharing some of your experience. What's your kind of connection with that history, and what is it that inspires you guys to do this work, and what is the work that you're doing?
Well, main things I wanted to say, they're next to all. But
you've got the weapons.
We've got the hard artifacts.
We've got the hard
Yes, we've got the hard artifacts that will actually remain here forever and ever. It's forgotten history, as you started the subject with, that things that we as Sikhs had forgotten, and naturally throughout history these things have been forgotten, and no one ever told us anything about the contribution of the Sikhs into the First and Second World War. Like more than 83,000 turban-wearing Sikhs actually died for Britain, and that is our contribution. That is a big number. That is a big number for one single community being a minority. Less than like 1.5%, maybe it's 2% now. And for them to actually contribute up to 22% into the British Indian Army by the Second World War, that was a phenomenal number. And what we are doing...
in a sense, if you talk about in actual terms, half of the Sikh nation was given to the war.
There was.
In proportionate terms.
As a martial race, obviously that's why we have... You were talking about deserting and stuff. There's no question about that. Once a Sikh has sworn on the Guru Granth Sahib, sanu dasya gaya, main Punjabi ch bhi keh raha ke jadon baj pei fir ek ki te hayar ki. Chamkaur di Gadi was one of the first examples, and then the same thing was repeated in apne ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੜੀ ਸੀ ਅਫਗਾਨਿਸਤਾਨ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਯਾਦ ਨਹੀਂ, ਸਾਰਾ ਗੜੀ, ਸਾਰਾ ਗੜੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 10,000 ਸੇਮ ਥਿੰਗ। ਸੋ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ
ਇਹ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿਊਰ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਢਾਡੀ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਮਸਾਲਾ ਲਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਬੜੀ ਆਦਤ ਹੁੰਦੀ, ਇੱਥੇ ਕੋਈ ਮਿਸਾਲਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ
It's a
ਮਿਥਿਹਾਸ
reality.
we're not
Yeah.
talking about mythology we're talking about history
ਇਤਿਹਾਸ।
Yes.
we talk about reality and ਇੱਕ ਚੈਲੰਜ ਹੈ ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ੱਕ ਆ ਵੀ ਕਰੇ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਕਹਾਣੀਆਂ ਬਣਾਵੇ you go out and find out
Yeah.
if there are any evidence of Sikhs ever betraying or leaving the battlefield and I don't think you will find any.
There was actually, I think the Germans had captured some Sikhs by mistake, thinking that they were actually from belonging to the Muslim religion. So they captured them, they took them to Turkey, and they got them to fight for them. But then what those Sikhs did, because they were loyal, they had sworn, they had already taken the oath of Guru Granth Sahib, they had escaped to Afghanistan, and then through there, to India and wherever the British empires were fighting from, and they joined back with our allied forces. So
Okay, Tim, we're all kind of biased. We would say Sikhs
Yeah.
are great.
Well, I think they are.
You're kind of, in a sense, got an outsider's perspective, and you obviously have got immense interest and respect for the Sikh tradition and the Sikh tradition. Tell us a bit about your own views about some of this, and tell us something about the weapons as well. Yeah.
Well, I got in connection with the museum about 5 years ago into Kabul, and I just admired the Sikhs, how brave they were in both wars, and I was asked to help, and I've been there ever since, and I brought a lot of my weapons and artefacts from First World War.
Now, this uniform itself is from the First World War.
Yeah, this is an actual First World War uniform, and the Sikhs, some of the Sikhs would have worn the same
But
uniform.
they would have these kurtas as well, wouldn't they? Because they've got them on exhibition. They specially sewed these garments for the Sikh soldiers, weren't they? It was like
Yeah. They were varied, but they had the same equipment basically as the ordinary British infantry.
So tell us about this. I mean, in the film we call these Tommy guns, but
No.
there's more of a sophisticated name for this.
That's called a Lewis gun,
Yeah.
which was a medium machine gun. That had a rate of fire of 500 rounds a minute,
Yeah.
which was a quite effective weapon.
So you would have seen these in the battles in Belgium in the First World War?
All over the
in the trenches?
theatres of First World War, they were there.
So Sikhs would have been...
Sikhs would have been using them, yeah.
And what is what's the provenance of this weapon itself? Is it from...
Yeah, that's actually,
from the
that's a
European
1917 one. So it's basically, it'll have served in the latter part of World War One, but it's no different to the earlier models.
And there's another rifle here as well. Haven't you?
That's the short magazine Lee Enfield, which every infantryman in the British Army had them. Very reliable, very effective. Had a killing range of about 2,500 to 3,000 yards.
And very heavy as well. To carry some of these weapons, you needed to be pretty strong.
Yeah, but they were young lads, weren't they? They were fit, and
And if you, the scroll is running, and so you will see these images flashing, and those weapons that these soldiers are carrying. These are the actual weapons. These were the weapons that were army regulation. Were they for all infantry? These were.
yeah, infantry.
I mean, you did say they were fit. In what sense? Like in the eating, what they were eating, or physically
Well,
doing?
physically, I would
like
imagine most.
Yeah.
I mean, most soldiers were fit, and Sikhs were warriors, and they had the fighting spirit, didn't they?
But tragically,
But-
again, in your exhibition, you talked about the way which actually many soldiers died of illness, didn't they?
Oh,
More
no,
died of
really?
illness
Yeah.
in I think in Mesopotamia. More died of the conditions than actually died on the battlefield. So there is that other side of.
There's. There are quite a few other sides. The Turks killed 4 times as many Indians than the Germans did. A lot of Sikhs died as part of illness, dysentery, of being kind of starved and marched to kind of prison camps.
So they didn't have enough food, you mean?
Well,
to keep on going.
Not normally, but in this one particular instance, there's a siege. A siege of Kut is called, and there was a siege which ensued for about 4.5-5 months, and they were then surrounded by the Ottoman forces.
So
and then
where was it, in Mesopotamia?
that was a siege of Kut. It was Turkey,
In
right?
Turkey, So how many Sikhs? Was it a regiment that was trapped?
So it was not just Sikhs. So it was a large number, mixed. Of Sikhs, Hindus, and British forces. I think there were Muslims as well, but yeah, it's and the Allied forces. So and they were they marched up the Tigris. They took the first few towns, and they wanted to take Baghdad. It was an ill-fated, sort of ill-conceived strategy, which backfired because the Ottomans, regrouped outside of Baghdad, and they kind of, forced.
And they knew the terrain as well.
And they knew the terrain. It was hot. It was quite kind of, it was difficult terrain. The supply lines were not in place, and they kind of, got ahead of themselves because the general who was, or the leader who was in charge, Townsend, he kind of either he was given the wrong sort of orders, or he executed a wrong strategy. I don't know enough details, but he kind of led the troops up. And then they had to fall back, and then the siege ensued, and then they were eventually had to surrender because of lack of food, and they had to eat their horses and stuff. And then they were, whoever was left, they were marched 1,000-mile march to a prison camp, and they were, exhausted
in the desert.
In the desert,
Oh God!
Right? It was
And the thirst as well, the water. I mean,
absolutely.
Jugman, you were going to come in because you yourself have been in the battlefield, so you'll know something about survival.
I was saying, as Benji asked about fitness, I think physical fitness counts, but I think it's mental fitness as well.
Yeah.
So it's not
Mind over matter. Yeah.
I've been to Belgium, seen the trenches there, but it's hard to imagine. I think at the start of the war, probably team had done so much research. The party has done so much research as well. They started the war with one-man trenches, if I'm right, or maybe, and they actually did a survey there. Look, about 40% soldiers are failing to fire when they see every time the German charge. So about 40% are firing the weapons. So then they actually put 4 men together. They said, look, out of 4, 1 will fire the first round. It's not about the last round, it's about firing the first round. So even today, I can't talk about...
So you're talking about the focus, keeping the focus.
As they're saying, Bhutta Singh said that, Singh send me this Guru Granth Sahib Ji, so probably I can feel their relief. They have, after having their Guru Granth Sahib, after probably the Gurbani give you spiritual guidance and strength as well. Yeah?
Strength.
So there's a letter again, like a soldier telling his wife, look, ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਲੋਕ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਲਈ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਮੇਰੀ ਵਾਈਫ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਕਿ ਲੋਕ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਬਿਸਕਟ ਖਾਓ ਐਂਡ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਪਰ ਲੋਕ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਿਸਕਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਜੀ ਸਕਦੇ we want chapatis
roti pani
and initially the army said it's not possible to get
that type of food,
so but in end I think the French people they brought atta for them and they talk about equality as well. There's a letter by Isha Singh. He said, look, the people are they behaving like they're treating us equally. Even in the hospital they're talking about people, the kings coming, like bringing them flowers. He said, look, it's they're not treating us like a second class. I think I was shocked, when I went to the army and
so there was a lot of support and sympathy.
The amount of respect I was getting. I went to Sanders Academy I think I spent about a month there. And as I'm walking through all these big
because
rooms,
the first room is the India room, isn't it? Yeah.
And I remember one of my troop commander telling me stories. He said, look, most of these Victoria Crosses, I'm not being like I was Italian Eliza, but I said, look, most of these Victoria Crosses was won with Sikh battalion.
Yeah, they were.
But I said, like, the officers was like because at that time the Sikhs was not allowed to be an officer or something like that. So he said, like, that's why most of the officers were getting these Victoria Crosses. But the soldier who was actually doing most of the fighting was Sikhs.
I mean, that is phenomenal, Tim. I mean, it's phenomenal the amount of Victoria Crosses that the Sikhs actually were awarded.
Yeah.
The bravery.
I think it was sheer bravery, the individual soldier, weren't it? There was such a fierce.
I think
it was just, but one other thing, and we're going to go to a break in a minute. But actually, there's a couple of things I wanted to pick up with you as well. Just tell the viewers what was life like in the trenches. We talked about shell shock. We talked, not only were there bombs, there were kind of gas being.
There were gas attacks, mustard gas. Shell shock, and it's hard to explain.
It must be like a trauma.
Yeah, well, it would have been, wouldn't it?
It's probably about the nearest that you can get to hell on earth.
Yeah.
Must
have a lot of trauma.
Okay, just one last thing, because you mentioned about the soldiers and chapatis, yeah?
Yeah.
There's another picture in the exhibition which is, again, quite interesting, which is of Sikh soldiers with traditional musical instruments and bhajan things, and again, that they brought them to do kirtan, and there's another interesting...
Yeah, it's very interesting because, as Baji said, I believe in all of the Sikh regiments, Guru Granth Sahib was carried. Not at the forefront of the battle, but what happened was you would have a rotation. And
Although when they were marching, because we have those images.
yeah,
in
but they
the
are
Middle
on
East,
relief at the time. They're away from the front
the
line.
front line, yeah.
And when they're away from the front line, that's when they are performing all their
And
rituals.
so in the middle of the desert, they would do a prakash.
Yeah,
They'd get the
absolutely.
instruments out and they start doing.
And that picture, I think that image you're referring to, that's in a barn in France,
It is, yeah.
and where they've got the
Wow.
bar and stuff, and they're doing kirtan, and that's away from the front line when they're doing that rotation.
I think
bit.
that
So when they're-
spirit kept them going as well.
I
like,
believe so, right?
yeah.
I mean, I personally would find a lot of strength from that, and I'm sure
yeah.
they did, right? And you would from anything that you can.
Yeah.
And because quite rightly, as you said, Baji said as well, it was hell on earth.
Yeah.
I think there was nothing like that before
Yeah.
then. Any that type of fighting.
And maybe, I mean, I know that there's been recently a spate of movies being made about 1984, which is fantastic. You know, we are now learning the lessons that if you don't capture your own history, nobody else will. But it would be great if maybe some of the Bollywood producers and maybe worldwide producers began to create some films of the Sikhs in the First World War. I mean,
There is a small part, isn't there, in the English Patient?
oh yeah, yeah.
In the English
He's a kind
Patient.
of complex character, isn't he?
But I just want to interrupt at this stage and say there was also a Royal Navy battleship as well called HMS Sikh, which I think was sunk twice. They kept rebuilding it, and there were 3 versions of it.
Yeah.
And I think in the end it was sunk in the Mediterranean
Good one.
We've
by
actually
by
got
the
the-
Germans.
I think they've actually got
We
some.
got the badge from
Yeah.
this HMS Sikh. We will bring that after the break.
And also,
There you are. Well, actually, there you are. That's a good segue into the break.
So it's nice to
you
go
are
to the
watching
break, yeah.
the one show. It's a very special one show where we are commemorating the 100th anniversary of the First World War and the Armistice Week as well, and particularly the Sikh contribution. We've heard some fantastic contributions.
Yeah,
Mandy,
definitely we
and,
have.
and I was
quite
feeling sad at the
stunning.
beginning, but I feel much more uplifted now. So we will go for a break, and we'll be straight
So
back.
yeah.
And we're gonna. It's an extended show today, so we're gonna go right to 9:15, and maybe we will also try to take some calls as well. So if you'd like, if you've got any questions to ask, then maybe after the break we will take some calls, and we will see the badge as well. So ek minute de bache ਅਸੀਂ ਮੁੜ
So
ਕੇ
we'll see you
ਆਪਣਾ
straight after
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ
the
ਕਾ
break.
ਖਾਲਸਾ
Khalsa.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ